we're talking on a day where stocks are not doing that much, but interestingly, the VIX is ticking up a little bit. And lately, we've been watching the VIX curve. That's been a big subject of discussion because it seems to imply people think volatility will tick up.
Yeah, it's important to look at the curve because it's going to show you where investor sentiment is, especially going forward, because VIX is only a 30-day indicator, and everybody knows what's being priced in right now into the market. A potential rate hike from the Fed, you've got the conventions, but investors are nervous about how that's going to play out from October through January. So you're seeing the VIX curve actually steepen last week, even in the face of kind of muted markets, right? Especially on Friday. And when you look at today, the market was up earlier in the morning, let's say it was up 0.25%. We actually saw VIX spiking about 4 or 5%, which is indicative of people are starting to get a little nervous. They think 15 is kind of like a bottom level, but it's going to go and hit at least 21 by January.
And I remember sort of at the beginning of earnings season, you saying that stocks are less vulnerable during earnings season, that there tends to be some support. Well, now we're done with earnings season. So is that also sort of factoring into this uptick in volatility and expected volatility?
Absolutely. That's what's playing in the market, because when we went to January, we had extreme levels of volatility, and corporations were quiet. It was a quiet period. They couldn't really talk. So what saved us? It was earnings season. So that could be what's going to happen again in the fall as well, because if we go back to when you had the Ebola scare, then earnings saved us that season. So once companies come out and they actually give guidance, especially because expectations are so low on corporate earnings, right? I mean, we had peak earnings back to 2014. So it's been 2 years where we really had an earnings recession. So it's easy for companies to beat, especially now that the dollar has gone considerably weaker over the last 6 months against the wider basket.
Now, speaking of weak expectations, Apple is a stock that we've been watching over the past couple of weeks, but also today, because there was a report out of a Taiwanese newspaper that maybe iPhone 7 orders are going to be higher than anticipated. And your trade this week is looking at Apple. It's a covered call. You're looking ahead to September. Is that pegged to iPhone 7 launch, I assume?
This is actually pegged to the announcement. So what you typically get is you get kind of a summer doldrums when it happens, because right now there's not a bunch of news. We know this is the major event happening, but that's in September, because people are going to start buying the stock come September when the phone is released, holiday sales, it's the refresh cycle. But up until then, we've seen all the news is really baked into the stock. So if you like the stock, you can actually buy it here and then sell the 100 call against it. And so even if nothing happens to the stock, you're going to make 4% alone on just taking in that options premium. And we've seen the stock run up considerably over the last few weeks. Now, everybody knows the story when it comes to Apple. Apple's, trading at an 8 times PE ex cash. They've got a dividend. But the problem is they don't really have a new product to invigorate that growth that people want to see. So this is a great way to play the stock going into the next announcement of the new phone. And then you get paid to do it.
And do you think that the stock is going to have significant upside, or is it sort of just that you're getting a dividend in a way?
No, this is a way to turn it into kind of a nice corporate bond. And it's hard to see Apple growing considerably from here, because they've pegged all of their hopes on China, right? So Tim Cook has consistently said there's going to be 500 million citizens over there in the middle class to go to this, but the Chinese government doesn't like it because it's an encryption machine.